So, Marvel Rivals. The savior to the hero shooter genre is upon us. Look upon its roster, ye mighty, and despair. I've given it some time and I've seen a lot of good discussions online surrounding the game, but there is one question that keeps coming up and dominating the discourse on this game. Will Marvel Rivals be the hero shooter to finally dethrone Overwatch 2, cementing itself as the new go-to game to get drunk and play with your buddies? There's a lot of opinions, but here's my take. Sit back, relax, and let's discuss Marvel Rivals. So what is it about Marvel Rivals that is capturing my attention and the attention of other players around the world? I think a big part of it has to do with the characters. The characters are split into 3 classes. They're kind of your standard DPS, tank, and support class, but they're called Duelist, Vanguard, and Strategist in this game. I'm gonna probably refer to them as DPS, tank, and support though, just for clarity. I've only scratched the surface on this game. I've played a few DPS characters, a handful of tanks, and mostly support, and honestly, each and every one has been a unique, wonderful, engaging experience. Their movement feels great and fluid. A lot of focus is put onto movement abilities as well to help support the character and make sure that they feel unique. There's characters with flight. There's Jeff the Land Shark who can go into shark mode through the land and kind of swim around and heal himself. Even something as simple as Squirrel Girl using her tail to bounce up and get a higher vantage point is something cool and exciting, and it kind of switches up the gameplay. So if you're feeling a little burnt out on one character or role, you can swap to another and have a great time. Speaking of the movement of the characters themselves feels very good. It feels fluid. The shooting and ability usage also feels great. One thing that I like about this game is that you feel like a superhero or a fucking supervillain when you're playing. The abilities are strong, they have great effects and visuals to go along with them, and it just feels great to use, which is very important. If that's one of the main focuses of your game is using these flashy abilities, they need to feel great to use. There's also another great aspect of team composition, which is the team synergies. Sometimes when you have certain characters on your team, it will activate team-up abilities, which can give you different buffs or activate different moves that you can use. It's great. Something as simple as adding ice to Jeff the Land Shark's water abilities, or being able to ride on the back of Groot as Rocket Raccoon really adds a unique aspect to the gameplay that is both fun and rewarding, and also incentivizes you to try out different characters. A lot of games wouldn't lean into something like that. Overwatch doesn't have anything like that at the moment, and it's very nice and refreshing to see that Marvel Rivals is not afraid to have strong characters, because again, it's a superhero game. We want strong characters. This mentality also carries over to the developers' overall view on patching and adjusting the game. They have stated they want to focus more on buffing weak characters than nerfing strong ones, which I think is a great kind of angle to take the overall game corrections on. All too often you have a character that is, yes, probably a little too strong comparative to the others, but they're a lot of fun to play, and then they just get cut down and neutered, and it's no longer fun to play then. As somebody who's played Apex Legends for a long time, I've seen it happen time and time again with characters. As soon as they start to have some emergent gameplay that really shakes things up and really adds a fun way for you to interact with the game, here comes the banhammer, and now they're all of a sudden kind of pruned down into the same character as everybody else. I guess that kind of is my best way of describing my view on it. If you keep shaving off these outliers on each of the characters that makes them unique, then you're going to have a bunch of characters that may do things slightly different, but they overall feel the same, and that's not great for encouraging your players to keep playing your game for a long time. Right now, a lot of people want role queue for the game, maybe limiting it to 2 DPS, 2 supports, and 2 tanks. And initially, I did crave that coming from Overwatch, but I think that I've kind of changed my view on that. I do miss not having role queue for crazy comps, like the early days of Overwatch when I was playing that. There's been a few games where I've played all support characters. There's been a few games where I've played all tanks, but 1 support. You wouldn't be able to do something like that in Overwatch anymore, and it kind of makes it feel more unique and exciting. Maybe you can have kind of a limit for ranked or something like that, but at least for casual games, I think it's fine as is at the moment. But be sure to let me know in the comments below if you agree with that, because I'm very interested on your take with that specifically. There's one final note I have on the characters, and it's the actual characters themselves. Overwatch at this point has some characters that are iconic and have a dedicated fan base. You have people who really enjoy the characters for their personality or for their lore or just maybe their cosmetics, if we're being honest. And as iconic and cool as those characters are and people relate to them, they don't compare in any way to actual Marvel characters. There's just no comparison. Marvel's character roster is deep, it is varied, it has a massive history, there's a giant nostalgia pull for a lot of fans, and being able to step into a game as Wolverine, as Captain America, as Storm, it's incredible. Like, I never get tired of being able to play as these characters I've known for years as I've grown up, and I'm sure a lot of other people feel the same way. So in that regard, Marvel Rivals has a great asset to it. Let's talk about some maps and game mode things. This is your typical hero shooter stuff, capture points, push objectives, stuff like that. If you've played a hero shooter before, you kind of know what to expect, and all the usual stuff is here. Sure, over time, certain game modes feel drawn out or repetitive, but usually around the time you start to feel burnt out on one type of game mode, you'll switch to the other. So if you've been capturing checkpoints for a while, you'll have a push objective mode, and that'll kind of switch it up. The maps overall look good. They fit the aesthetic of the game and that kind of comic booky, over-the-top feel with a unique artistic flair to it. The maps somehow feel grounded, but also fantastical at the same time. You'll have a kind of canyon battleground, but in the background there will be a giant ship floating in the sky, so kind of keeps things fantastical, but also feeling realistic at the same time, even though we're playing as over-the-top heroes and gods. I appreciate that there is a lot of verticality in the maps so that you can take vantage points or use alternate paths to reach objectives. And also the destructible environments are cool. They help you feel strong, first and foremost, which I think, again, is the big thing with the power fantasy of this game. And you can use them for some tactical purposes and cutting off routes or exposing hiding places, but it almost feels like an afterthought for some of these maps. So hopefully the ones we get in the future can kind of utilize it more, and it's not just there for set decoration. Overall, this game to me feels like I picked up where Overwatch 1 left off. In a lot of ways, it feels more like Overwatch than Overwatch 2 does today. And I think a lot of that is a focus on the characters and making sure that they feel fun and powerful and allowing everything to get a little wacky, Sure, it's a competitive game, you want to win, but if you want to have an off-meta composition, you can, and you will see success in some instances with it. If Marvel Rivals can keep their vision for balancing by buffing rather than relying on nerfing, I think that we could have a really, really great game on our hands here. The Marvel roster is deep, so you can bring in a ton of great characters and things will never feel dry or stale. I know there have been some characters that came out recently in Overwatch, specifically I'm thinking of Kiriko and Juno, that have been big hits with the audience, and they've latched onto those characters and adore them as much as some of the classic characters, but there have been some flops as well. I mean, nobody really talks about Venture. Does anybody like them? That won't be the case for Marvel in a lot of instances, because they can pull a character from anywhere and people will have some familiarity with them, which is just great. As long as the monetization with Marvel Rivals stays its course as it currently is, where it's pretty user-friendly, honestly, especially compared to other games, I don't see a problem in that area either. There's a lot of set dressing on this table that makes me think we have a wonderful gaming feast ahead of us, and hopefully I'm not wrong in that. And honestly, I know it may feel like I'm just sitting here glazing the game, but I do think that we have a lot to be excited for and a lot to look forward to in the future.
Yeah, House, I hear you yapping, but get to the point. Is this game the Overwatch killer that we've been waiting for or not?
Well, dear viewer, the answer is complicated. I don't see this game killing off Overwatch completely, but we have already seen a lot of players migrate over. If they continue their trend of tempered balance updates frequently and continue to pull from Marvel's absolutely stacked roster, it's hard to see Marvel Rivals failing. That said, I don't know if it will full-on kill Overwatch, but as a fan of Overwatch 1, I am hopeful for the future. Hopefully this game can give Blizzard some competition and force them to take their heads out of their asses. The monetization prioritization is slowly choking Overwatch's player base off, and the lack of innovation is not helping matters at all. Competition is ultimately good for everyone, whether you like Marvel Rivals or Overwatch more, because it will incentivize both games to get better. When Concord came out and nobody noticed and then it fell off, people were quick to say that hero shooters were old news and no one wanted them anymore. Marvel Rivals proves that is not the case, and that what people really don't want is cookie-cutter, samey games. As long as both Marvel Rivals and Overwatch step up their game, we could experience an amazing time for gaming. Here's to hoping we get the best of both worlds and we can enjoy different aspects of each game depending on which we feel like playing that day. Only time will tell, but I'm hopeful for the future. So those are my thoughts on Marvel Rivals. Have you checked out the game? If you have, let me know about your experience in the comments below. I'd be interested to hear how things are going for you and which characters you're playing. It's just nice to have a hero shooter that finally prioritizes and incentivizes indulging in the power fantasy of things, you know? I'm having a great time with it. Also, I briefly wanted to take some time to thank everybody who watched my recent Fortnite video about the new season. It meant a lot to me that you guys took the time to watch it, and even more that you guys took the time to engage in some awesome discussion in the comments of that video. It means a lot to me. Before that video, I think I had like 35 subs, and now we're over 100, so that's absolutely incredible, and I can't thank you guys enough. I've got another Fortnite video in the oven cooking up for you guys, but it became a bigger project than I thought it would be initially, so that's why I'm peppering in this Marvel Rivals video. But be sure to subscribe so you can keep up to date on our newest videos, and if you have not checked out that video, I'll leave it at the end here. But that's going to be all for me today, guys. I'm going to go try and learn some more heroes. Make sure you eat well, stay hydrated, take care of yourself and those around you, and I'll see you in the next one, friends.